Hello, Lauren, Dr. Reddick. Thanks for allowing me to do your 2D and 3D analysis. We're going to be looking at 12 hitting inhibitors that can impact your power, contact, and efficiency. And first, we're going to start off with looking at see if you have a sway at all. And so when we look at your negative move, and you definitely do not have a sway. All right, next we're going to look at loss of posture. So as you go into your positive move, I draw a line between your eye and your waist, and you can see you're leaning back. And so when you're moving forward, we actually want you in an attacking position, and not until you do heel plant do we want that angle there. All right, so initially going forward, let me undo. So even here, you're at the toe touch, right eye down to the waist, you have a backwards lean. And so we would want you to have a forward lean. So that loss of posture can actually impact sequencing. And so that'll be something we'll need to address. Next is dead hands, just how much your hands move during the motion there. I'm going to come out of this real quick and just, what's going on? Go to your 3D here. And so let's see. We're going to have you move, or maybe not. Let me see what's going on here. All right, so what I'm looking to see if your hands separate at all. There might be a little bit there. So in the initial video, I started a little bit late. So I'm just trying to see if there's a little separation between your hands and your nose on that forward move. And it looks like I am getting some there. Or am I getting rotation? It's a tough call because you're throwing that shoulder out in front and it's leaving a little early. Let me go back here. So we look at negative move, which is movement away. Oops, go back here. Let's see what we got here. Negative movement, movement away from the pitcher. We see a little movement of the hands, but the shoulders are also moving as well. Okay, I'm going to say dead hands on this one. And the reason the dead hands is important because we do want some separation but away from your body. And that creates this elastic stretch, which generates power, generates energy, which translates into, power within your swing. And so I am going to say there's a little dead hands there. And then looking at your physical screen, you did have some tightness in the shoulders, which may be preventing you from separating the bat from your body. So it is consistent with your movement screen. All right, so back to the video here. And so next what we're going to do is loss of base. And so when you do that toe touch, I'm going to look at what your left knee is doing. Is it facing over your toe or is it kind of looking at me? And so when we get here, so if we call this toe touch, that left knee is kind of looking at us, all right? Now you get here, we get movement. Here starts to go out a little bit more than on the heel. That's tough. I'm gonna say, and loss of base, it maintains your stability there, helps with your sequencing. I'm gonna say you have a loss of base there. I like that knee turned out a little bit more. I feel like I can still see your left kneecap pretty good there. All right. Next, are you hanging back? And so what we do here, draw a line straight up. We pretty much, once you get to contact, we don't want that heel to cross the line, all right? So I think you're okay. And what that means is you're getting a decent weight shift. We definitely don't want that heel well past the line. And so, and then you get on your toes there. So you do get a flexion of your toes, which some of the folks will, But the key is that contact. Where is that foot? Oh, we don't quite get that frame, do we? But I think you're good. Okay, so that lets me know you have a pretty good weight shift. The next thing we want to see is, do you have what we call a gate swing? And we don't want that right elbow to get stuck on that hip for too long. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, and so when we go, what's that elbow on the hip? 1, 2, 3. So I get you 3 frames. And typically, if you have 3 frames, that means you're not quite getting that elbow around past those hips, meaning that it can throw off your sequencing as well as your power. All right. And so there is a gate swing there. And again, some of this may be related to your physical screen. Even though I'm looking at your elbows and your hips, does this mean part of your shoulders? Because they're a little tight or making this difficult for you to make that movement. All right. Flying elbow, we're going to go back to the toe touch position. And we'll be there. So where's that elbow in relationship to the wrist? Doing pretty good. Then also as we get further along, do we have pretty good alignment? So we do a couple of frames past the shoulder. And how are we doing? So technology can sometimes be our friend and sometimes our enemy. And so it looks like we're the frame. Either you're just a super fast swinger, or we're missing like the frames that I need. I don't have because it jumps. But here, maybe a little. I think you have alignment there. Okay, I'm going to say you're okay in regards to not pushing. I think you're whipping it through. All right. Also, dumping the barrel. I want to make sure that barrel is in the proper position compared to the hands. Then the other piece is, are you drifting? So we take you to heel plant. I'm going to draw a line kind of up and down here. Just want to make sure you rotate around that line there. Very nice. All right. So next we're gonna switch views. So overall, pretty good. Loss of posture, dead hands, loss of base, gate swing. All these are fixable, and forget about doing the corrective exercises. I think you'll see improvement sooner than later. So we're gonna go through the rear view. Oh, what am I doing? Zoom, that's what I wanted to do. All right, so let's see. Oh no, did I get you too late on the swing here? I think I did. Let me see if I have another picture of you. No, looks like you're too fast for me. All right, let me switch over to the 3D then. I don't know if that'll help me out. Sorry, I started the camera too late and I didn't get a good rear view. My apologies. And so what we'll look for next is your X factor. And so here what we'll do is just going to kind of measure 19, 18. So we get about 20. So X factor, roughly about 20. And so what we're looking for is how much separation you get from your shoulders and your hips. And ideally, we want about 25 to 35. All right. And so obviously you get greater than that, but that's after you swing. So we're looking for what you do, I guess you can say, during the negative move, during the wind up part of it. All right. And then up top, what we're looking at is your sequencing. All right. And so when we look at your sequencing, all right, looks like that's just going to have to do. Red is your lead arm, green is your shoulder, and orange is your pelvis. So when they peak here, so you see this red one peaking, that's what I'm looking at. But what we're looking at not only is how high do they peak, but also when do they peak. And so the important thing here is we want the orange to actually peak first, but as you can see, that peaks last. then the shoulder or the trunk, and then the lead arm. So your sequencing is technically backwards, all right? That means pretty much your arm dominant. And so what we'll have to do is work on really your hips. And so again, we found some limitation in your pelvic motion. You had trouble stabilizing your hips, even when I grabbed your shoulders to see if we can move. So those exercises are going to be crucial to you, because if you can improve that pelvic rotation, your sequencing should improve. And like I said, you're backwards, the velocity, meaning the height of them, is actually pretty good, but they're not benefiting from one another. They benefit from one another when they're in the proper sequence, meaning so if the pelvis goes first, then the shoulder trunk, and then the arm, you actually may be able to increase your velocity there. And let me see if we can just kind of see, and it may not be totally clear, but it just shows that your lead arm is getting ahead of your hips. And then your hips are just, even though they are moving, so like, again, your hips are moving, but they haven't moved the full range of motion that we want them to. And your hips don't fully turn or reach peak velocity until after you hit the ball, actually. All right, so we actually want to see that before you hit the ball. So that's another thing too. It's like your arms are peaking, then your trunk is peaking, but your power source that generates it all is actually not peaking until after you hit the ball. All right, so sequencing for you is going to be very important, but those corrective exercises to help activate those pelvic muscles, those deep core muscles, are going to be key. All right, so you have a good, pretty decent, shoulder turn in comparison to your hips with the red model there. But you can see here, those arms and shoulders get the firing before the hips. Those hips are actually pretty silent initially, and you can see the shoulder turn. Ideally what we want is those hips to go first, trunk, and then shoulders, but because you have trouble just rotating your hips, your body is compensating and making up for it in the upper body. All right. Well, thank you much. Be good about doing your exercises for me. And then if you have any issues along the way, let me know. Thanks a lot.